Jim, what would you say defines what a real man is?
The courage to stand for what you know in your heart is true. The principles that God are bringing to you. I can remember the first time that I really looked up to my father. I was a freshman in high school. Mm-hmm. And I always respected my father, but I was mistreated by one of the parochial teachers. I was in a parochial school system. And the teacher had actually bounced my head off through the wall in the room. Is that
right?
For something that I really did not do. Mm-hmm. And I introduced that teacher to my knee. Teacher went to the ground. I ran for my life because back in the 60s, the authoritarian rule over students was horrendous. And I ran home. And I'll never forget, the school called my home and my mother called my father. Mm-hmm. My father came home and he looked at me. He said, "Son, tell me what really happened." And you never dared lie to my father.
So you told him exactly what happened?
I told him exactly what happened. He says, "You tell me the truth?" I said, "Yes." He took me to the doctor. I had a concussion. And he told the doctor, the doctor says, "I'll confess in court what happened." My father says, "That won't be necessary. We'll meet with the school board tonight." Well, we went to that school board, and they had all these brothers that were sitting up there. It's kind of scary for a young 15-year-old boy. Mm-hmm. My father wasn't a very big man, 150 pounds, 5 feet 8 inches, very quiet man, very subdued man. And when they started to mistreat me in that school board, I was shaken like a leaf. My father stood up.
He stood up for you.
He stood up. I was standing there because one of the teachers was poking me in the shoulder, pushed me back, called me a liar. My father stood up. He happened to be the wrestling coach, the teacher that was doing it to me. My father stood up, and I saw a quiet man stand for something that he believed in. And when he was finished with that dissertation, which I wouldn't dare repeat all the words,
yes,
but when he was finished standing for me and what he believed in, I thought to myself, there's a man.
So you saw a father defending his son, and it was you he was defending.
Yeah, exactly.
And it meant the world to you there.
Yes, it did, because I wasn't accustomed to seeing that. And my father had to take on a whole school board that they had much more knowledge than they did. They had much more authority than he did. But he stood toe to toe.
Because one of the things, Jim, that I see in our culture today is the sad fact that fathers often fight against their wives and against their children rather than for them. And your father fought for you.
Yes.
And that's what a man does. He emotionally, physically, and spiritually stands for his children and for his wife.
He had the courage and the integrity to do what he needed to do regardless of what the cost was. And that was my first, when I saw that, I've never lost that thought myself. I thought, I need to bring that into my family too.
Excellent. Now, in your book, you talk a lot about counterculture, about how this culture is leading us the wrong way, and as men of power, we need to stand against it. Talk to us a little bit about the counterculture.
It's very difficult. It was very difficult for me to finally decide, do I really want to be a man of God or not? Because there's so many things that happen in society today that everybody just goes along with. And I'm not necessarily against those things, but the devil has placed things before us to waste our time, to steal our time, because we need time to find a walk with God. We need time to revitalize our marriages. We need time to connect our families. And there's things that steal that time. Well, if you're going to really prioritize your life and become the man of God that God's called you to, you're going to go counterculture. And everybody may be on Facebook. Mm-hmm. But maybe you don't have time for Facebook. Maybe the time that you need is to put your hand in your wife's hand and go for a walk every night.
And spend time with her.
Yes.
Now, love to a child is spelled T-I-M-E. I remember hearing that, time.
Yes.
But you're saying that the enemy of the Lord, Satan, has just made it so that we waste time in non-important things.
Exactly.
Computers, technology, or
news.
Media, news, television.
TV. Internet.
And we're missing out on more important things.
Yes, on connecting.
Okay, so how do we go, or how do we restore that relationship with God and our family in this culture that we're presently in?
It's not very easy, Menor. Because to do that, you're going to become different.
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 Different is good in this case.
Well, in this case, it's good, but I don't like to be different. I don't like to be the albino. You see anything that's an albino, it's beautiful, but his own family usually doesn't accept it because it's different.
Okay.
It's pink eyes and it's all white. And so when I saw what God was calling me to, I needed to put away the peripheral things of life, which was the TV set, it was the news, it was a lot of the sports I was involved in. It was even my business that stole my time. And I knew I needed to come down, learn to be sensitive to God's presence with me, learn to take my time and learn to be in love with my wife again. Mm-hmm. I needed to take time to just roll on the ground and wrestle with my boys, play a little trucky in the sandbox with them, take them for a little walk, kick a little ball around the yard, instead of all the other things that stole my time.
I like the fact you say wrestle with your boys, because I found that with boys, because I too have two boys, wrestling is a form of affection, and it's a form of bonding with their dads, which is great to do while they're young. Now my boys are grown up, and when they want to wrestle, I just tell them, stop, just hold me, just hug me, because they're so strong. But that time that you gave them, one of the things you say in your book is that the enemy has tried to destroy what a man is all about, tried to just take the dads out of the picture altogether. So you're talking about going against the culture, being different, stepping aside. Now, what does that look like? How did it look in your life when you made the conscious decision to walk with God and to be a man of God, a man of power?
I threw myself into a lot of things that when I actually got home didn't really make me a different man behind closed doors. And I realized that when I was dating my wife, the number one thing that I gave her that connected us was time.
So time was the
I was
key.
always with her. And when I wasn't, I was on the phone with her. When I wasn't on the phone with her, I was writing a letter. Well, of course she fell in love with me. Why wouldn't she fall in love with me?
Because of the time.
Because of the time element, and same with my children. So I made a very radical decision quite a few years ago. I sold my business. I sold my home. We moved to the wilderness of Montana. And we had enough money to live for 3 years. Not much, only $18,000.
That's not much.
Divided into three. We lived on $6,000 a year for 3 years. And I said, I'm going to give time to God, I'm going to give time to my wife and to my children.
So you reprioritized. You restructured your whole world.
The first thing I did was simplify. I simplified my life down to what I called was the irreducible minimum. And then I reprioritized, saying my time is God's. I tithe my time every morning, and then my time is my wife. God says, you were successful in the business world because of the time you put into it. Now your business is your wife.
And you say in your book that a successful man and a man of power is one who has a strong home, a strong marriage, a strong family.
Yes.
And so in reprioritizing, you put things in order. God, your wife Sally, and your boys.
And then my family, my boys.
Yes. And then where does work come in?
And most people make it the first priority. Work was my fourth priority.
So number 4.
Was number 4. Exactly. And by doing that, it humbled me because I didn't feel important anymore. I mean, can you imagine? I used to be an important businessman making a 6-figure income. I had plaques on the wall and a lot of staff take care of things. And now I'm sitting up in the wilderness and I'm sitting on the edge of a sandbox and I'm playing trucky. No plaques, no business meetings, no money coming in. And my importance and my identity.
Now, when you say trucky, you're talking about playing with little trucks?
Little trucks going room, pop, 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 building little bridges and little holes with my little boys that were 4 and 6 years old, teaching them how to play in the sandbox.
There's Jim Holmberger.
That's Jim Holmberger.
The important author. He's playing trucky with his sons.
Yeah, I thought, is this my future? I mean, because my future before was tied to my paycheck. It was my office, the importance of who I was. And God says, no, I want to take you back to the beginning, Jim. And you learn how to love your children. You learn how to raise young men for my honor and glory. You learn how to put your wife before you. Then
then
then I'll do something with him.
excellent.